And glad you made it back, everybody. The Supreme Court, breaking news, just deciding this afternoon not to take up the Republican case challenging the state law for ignoring the law on mail-in ballots. For the latest on this, we're joined by Dr. John Eastman. He's a professor of law at Chapman University and senior fellow at the Claremont Institute. Always great to talk with you, sir. Let's just explore that. The Pennsylvania case that was brought before the Supreme Court by a sitting member of Congress, a couple other folks running for office. The High Court doesn't want to deal with that right now. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, Representative Kelly had asked the court for an emergency injunction blocking Pennsylvania officials from further certifying the electors in that state, based on the claim that an act that the Pennsylvania legislature passed a year ago, expanding absentee ballot voting, was in excess of their authority under the state constitution. I've never been particularly keen on that argument because I think that's a misreading of the state constitution. But nevertheless, there are some pretty significant legal scholars that thought otherwise. But this was an effort for an emergency relief. The cases are still pending on the merits in the courts below. So this may just be nothing more than a signal that says the court wants to take it up in due course rather than on the emergency relief request that had been filed.
So they could find that, just argument's sake, they could find that Pennsylvania's executive branch and judicial branch violated the legislative branch's laws in the election, but they're going to do it after Mr. Biden takes office. That's exactly how I'm reading what the Supreme Court just said. Let me pivot to what Texas has done. The Attorney General there, Ken Paxton, a frequent guest on the Chris Salcedo Show, radio and TV, has filed a lawsuit against four of these states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, saying that they violated their state constitutions, violated the federal constitution in doing so. Expand on what that case means and on why you're so high on it.
Yeah, I think it's a very important case. So what we've identified is a lot of state laws that were just ignored or suspended by executive officials or in collusive suits with the judiciary and the Democrat Party, in the case of Georgia and Pennsylvania, to change the election laws. And the reason that's such a significant constitutional issue is that the federal constitution gives absolute plenary power to the state legislatures to decide how to conduct elections for choosing electors for the presidency. And when those state election laws, particularly those that are designed to prevent fraud, like signature verification of absentee ballots and those kinds of things, then you have an election that was invalidly conducted. And Texas has made those arguments and laid out how many ballots were improperly processed as a result of those violations of state law, and they are much more than the number of votes dividing the two candidates in those states now.
Okay, and that kind of leads to what you have been talking about, and I wanted you to expand a little bit for the Chris Salcedo Show audience here about the key role the legislatures can play in choosing the next president of the United States. Of course, they're going to have to see evidence, in my view, that there was clear fraud going on to give them the ability to do this, politically speaking. But talk about the legal aspect of this.
So, yeah, it seems foreign to us, but Article 2 of the Constitution gives full power to the legislature to decide how to choose electors however it wants. In fact, for the first half century of our nation's history, most of the states' legislatures just chose the electors themselves. All the way up until 1860, South Carolina was still doing that. The issue now is having chosen to let the electors be picked by popular vote in the state. Can they reclaim that power? And the Supreme Court in Bush versus Gore said when they've made the decision to choose electors by a vote of the people, that vote is fundamental as long as the election is conducted in accord with the procedures set out by the legislature. Well, in these four states, you don't have that caveat. They weren't conducted in accord with the procedures set out. And I think that means that the legislature can reclaim its power to pick the electors, or to call another election, or to affirm the set of electors if they don't think there's enough evidence to shrink the margin of victory that Joe Biden currently has.
Great point. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, you violated your own state laws. You violated your own legislature's laws. Thus, we have to have some discussions going on here. Dr. Eastman, it's always a pleasure talking with you, sir, and thank you for the clarification on that. Like a lot of folks out there in the audience are going, wow, how about that? Coming up.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.